Welcome back to video 2. You learned all about what to look closer at in video 1, now you're going to learn how to identify and comp. For dolls like this Uma here that have a unique look to them, Google Lens will be your friend. It's an app you can download on your phone. It might not always get it right, but it can point you in the right direction for what property it might be from. And it can take multiple tries. Sometimes try scanning the face or the clothes and you'll get different results. For Barbies though, sometimes Google Lens will be good for clothing or a fully dressed doll, but on a nude doll, it's probably not going to be able to point you in the right direction. There's just too many that look exactly the same. So for those, you'll need to use a backup resource, which I'm going to link in the description for you and go over next. And that's also why it's helpful to learn which eras which heads are from. If you want to go through the trouble of having a positive ID, this page is a great resource, but you'll have to go off the latest marked date on the doll, try to narrow it down by face too, and just click through the years to see if you find a match. Pay attention to the lipstick color, hairstyle, the part in the hair, and the eye color to help you sift through them, but I'm not gonna lie, it's a pretty arduous process doing it this way. If you find a doll stamped Mattel and it looks kind of like a Bratz doll, which are stamped MGA, you've found a My Scene doll, and I have a page that will help you find the right one. You can use the eye makeup to match those up. And if you've found an articulated Barbie, you've probably found a fashionista, and this guide will help you. But they changed the fashionistas around 2014 to have fixed arms, so if you find a fixed arm doll with one on the hip and one down, or any other model-like poses, it's worth seeing if she's a fashionista, because that's a good keyword to use in your listing. One of the best things you can do for doll knowledge though is to just go down the doll aisle at the store. The dolls here will be the ones showing up at the Goodwill and garage sales over the next few years, so it's good to be ahead of the curve a little bit. You'd be surprised how much of that knowledge sticks in there if you make it a point to gaze over it every time you're at Walmart or Target. Part 2. So now we know what to set aside and how to look it up, let's put it in action and go see what we can find. Despite being a modern doll, I looked this one up because she has a push button, and from the look of her clear tail, I'd say it lights up. She was easily ID'd just by googling Mermaid Barbie and looking at pictures. Unfortunately, that big tail means she won't fit in my standard doll box, and she doesn't look like she's worth it. This next one was a great example of what to look up. She has unusual skin tone and hair color, she's articulated, has shoes, and appears to be well dressed. Perfect doll to use Google Lens on, and the answer came right up. She's Starfire from DC Comics. Once I was able to look her up, I realized she's actually missing some of her costume pieces. Prices are all over the place, so it's hard to gauge, but I want to point out that someone just sold her shoes for $8.75. Parting dolls out or selling loose clothing is totally an option, and I'll touch on that a bit later on. I looked up this one because of the unusual hair color and nice dress, but I knew it was Glinda from Wizard of Oz, just missing some of her outfit. Looks like she has some minor value, but I bet you could sell just the dress and choker for the same price as the doll and dress together. Sometimes you have to think outside the box. Here's some good examples of what I pass on. This doll is more modern with a molded bodice, and there's nothing special about that. This doll is a 90s Teresa, which Mattel calls Barbie's Hispanic friend. She normally has pretty long hair, so it seems cut to me, so I put it back. This is just a modern fashionista, nothing really special unless I could find a lot of them cheap. I thought this one was interesting because it has a torso that moves. Took a couple of tries, but I was able to get an ID with Google Lens as one of the Disney fairy dolls. And again, maybe if I had multiples in the set at a good price, it would be worth it, but not as a one-off nude doll. Here's a doll bag I bought for $5.50, which takes every doll down under $1, which is about what I like to pay. We have a good assortment to learn from here. And we'll take a look at the first and only Monster High I found filming this segment because unfortunately, they're the one dolls that even folks who don't sell dolls know have value, so they're low-hanging fruit at this point. And right off the bat, the top clearly isn't hers because it's too big. The skirt is Monster High, but not hers. The hairstyle's not original, you can tell because it's very sloppy and it has multiple elastics holding it. Not to mention, she has deep yellow staining on her face. This doll I would attempt to sell the body only if it's not loose jointed and toss the clothes aside for another time. This doll looks nicely put together. Her clothes match her hair and they fit. Her unusual look means she's a good candidate for Google Lens. And it did correctly pull up that she's a la-di-da doll. And look here, we have one with the same build and look to it, so we can safely assume they're both la-di-da dolls. Google Lens told me which ones they were too, so it was very easy to comp. I would probably sell these two together. This doll is a great example of finding multiple right things, and it's still not being a slam dunk value-wise. She has amazing glassy looking eyes, rooted eyelashes, blush, makeup. She's articulated, all these great things I talked about before. Google Lens was able to tell me she was a Project MC² doll, and when I looked at her comps, I was a little disappointed. But I bet I can still sell her for $15 to $16 nude on the basis of her being a beautiful articulated doll, using some of those generic descriptors I talked about previously. Here's another grab bag, this time only $3.50, but I bought it on 50% off day, so really only $1.75 for the bag, making my price per doll very reasonable. I got the bag specifically for this dress doll because she also has a push button of some kind and wings on her back, which is unusual. I also spy a red-haired doll even though her face is obscured, and I really like this doll's outfit, so there are some other candidates for sale in here. Turns out the button is a pop-up function for her dress, and I'm going to ask $20. The red-haired doll was a my scene that I'll sell nude for $15, and the Barbie I like the outfit of I'll speak on in a little bit. Another easily overlooked doll, if not for the push button and the sounds she likely makes, and also articulation, which means she's a fashionista. A quick look at that guide, and I learned who she was. I couldn't find many comps and none used, so I'm going to ask $20. The first boy doll of this filming expedition. Fully dressed, and although you can't see it, he's articulated. Google Lens told me he's Hunter from Ever After High, which is like Monster High bodies and molds, but human looking. Cha-ching, he's a winner. But wait, those clothes he has on are not what he came with apparently. I already knew that though because they're Flynn Rider's clothes from Tangled. I actually sold the doll overnight for $25 while editing this, so I probably should have asked more. But that's not a problem because I'll sell Flynn's clothing for $20, so potentially $1.50 into $45. Next is an example of a doll I bought just for the clothing. This dress is huge and to my eye not modern like the doll it's coming on. Google Lens with the win again, it correctly ID'd it as coming off a 1990 Happy Holidays Barbie. I'm going to list the dress by itself for $20. This doll has the unusual feature of springy ballet legs. Not too many listed or sold, I bet I could stretch it to $20. Random Barbie in a wedding dress, nothing special. Random Barbie in a blue dress, also not screaming special. But this last one is articulated, which means an early fashionista, as we learned earlier. And she has a cool purple hair streak. Look through the fashionista guide to ID her, and yep, she's totally worth it, even nude. And the dress will get tossed in with a big bag of clothes to figure out later. Part 3. Listing. Say you don't want to go through the trouble of IDing a nude Barbie because she came in a bag of stuff and you just want it gone. If you look at these listings, you can see a lot of good descriptors to use. But what do some of these mean? We've covered what fashionistas is, but twist and turn just means a doll with that old style twisty waist, usually 90s or earlier. Steffi face is a specific face mold where she has a characteristic kissy pout. If you find a doll with that head mold, definitely use Steffi as a keyword. The midge I sold for $47 has a Steffi face. Superstar era is a good keyword for any Barbie with that classic 80s, 90s face mold. Some other generic listing terms to think about using are nude, articulated if she's articulated, use her hair color or style, so instead of just blonde, maybe use platinum blonde or honey blonde, and if her style is up or straight or curly, use her eye color, her skin tone or ethnicity, whether or not she has clicky knees, if she's twist and turn, superstar era, Steffi face, vintage, so something 1990s or before, the country of manufacture stamped on the back of the doll, and OOAK, which stands for one of a kind. That's angling for people looking for a nude generic doll that they're going to customize by redoing her makeup or redoing her hair. Lastly, you may find it best to split the doll in clothing, which is my standard protocol for redressed dolls. I will list this cute outfit separately using clothing keywords, and the doll has the unusual feature of purple eyes, which I feel will be highly marketable. Dolls I sell using the grab bag of descriptors from before get a main shot of their head like this because I find it sells better than a full body shot. Outfits can be photographed on or off a doll, but I always tight shoot it and try and cut out the head whenever possible so buyers don't get confused. These are all outfits I've had listed or sold, so definitely don't be afraid to try your hand at selling just the clothes. I don't have an eye for selling people clothes, but I can make it work for doll clothes. And lastly, the best part of listing, to me at least, is posing for pictures. Dolls should be looking at the camera. Give them a dynamic pose of some kind. Lean them against the backdrop for stability if needed. Make them connect and come alive. I promise it's worth the effort. Your well-posed and photographed dolls will stand out in a sea of people who just didn't care. Then once you sell it, you just have to ship it and you're home free. For outfits, I have bulk boxes of bubble mailers that I use for lots of things, so I'll just put them in a sandwich bag, especially if there's shoes or accessories to contain, and then put it in a bubble mailer. For dolls, I use a 12x4x4 box. I order them in bulk because I also ship a lot of bottles and beauty products that fit really great in that size. For more expensive ones, or ones with shoes or other loose parts, they get a poly bag before boxing just to contain everything. Nudes and lower value dolls, I skip this step, but this Viperine doll sold for $30, so she's worth the extra step. Then I use packing paper for dunnage and pack her in nicely. It may seem like a lot, but doll collectors really appreciate this kind of packaging. A doll box like this weighs under 13 ounces, so I'm usually paying about $4 to $4.50. Seal it up and you're all set. Head on over to part 3 to learn how to clean up your dolls a little bit, and then hopefully after that you'll be a complete doll expert. As always, if you want to support me, likes and comments are free, so if you leave them, I'd really appreciate it. Now I'll see you in the next one.